Welcome back, students, and yet again, here is another review tutorial video for you if you missed class or if you had a hard time understanding because the pace was too quick. Hopefully this lesson you can pause, rewind, review, fast forward, whatever you need to better understand this lesson. In this lesson, I'm going to ask you to write the equation in point slope form for a graph of a line. Now, before we begin, on the right-hand side, let's review point slope form. So once again, point slope form will follow the following format. Y minus y sub 1 equals my slope times x minus my x of 2 in this case. My m is my slope, so my m, I'll put it in green. My m represents my slope, if you forgot. And my x1, y1, I am so sorry, I meant x of 1. I apologize if you caught me making my mistake. That's my x of 1, comma, y sub 1. This is my point on the line. So let's understand that means I need to know my slope and I need to know my point on the line. And this is the form for a point slope. Now let's go ahead and let's look at this. This lesson is going to incorporate our previous lessons. I'm going to zoom in. So hopefully it's clear for you to see. And I'm going to write some steps on the right-hand side. So let's go ahead and put step 1. Step 1, find the given point. I want you to find the point that they gave us, and I want you to tell me where is that point located. So here it is in red. And if I look at my coordinate grid, it is at 10 to the right and up 2. So x is 10, comma, 2. This is the first point they gave us. That's step 1. Always find the red dot. Step 2. Step 2, find another point on the line. So we need to go back to what we recall, and we need to follow this line until it crosses another area we can easily count, and it is right here. I know it crosses right here because it's crossing my little grid, and this is an easy point to indicate. This is at 4, comma, 1. 4 to the right and 1 up. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to write 4, comma, 1. So those are my first 2 steps. Now let's look at step 3. Step 3 is going to be label the 2 points and find the slope. So we're going to label our 2 points that we just had. So I'll clean it up. I'm going to put 10, comma, 2. There's the first point. And then the second point was 4, comma, 1. And what do I mean by label it? Well, this was my first point. So I'm going to put this as x1, y1. And this was my second point. So I'm going to label this as x2, y2. Now, if you remember from previous lessons, to find the slope between 2 given points, you're going to use this formula. The change in your y, so that's y2 minus y sub 1, divided by the change in our x of 2 minus x of 1. We labeled everything earlier, so all we need to do is put all that into our problem. Y sub 2 is 1. Y sub 1 is 2. So 1 minus 2 over 4 minus 10, because x of 2 minus x of 1. This is all we need to do in our setup, and once we have our setup, we need to just go ahead and solve. This will become negative 1 divided by negative 6 when you work it out. 1 minus 2 is negative 1. 4 minus 10 is negative 6. Now, IXL right here says write it in simplest form. That means I need to make sure I reduce these slopes as much as possible. A negative divided by a negative is a positive 1 over 6. So now I can come back here and say, hey, my slope is 1 over 6. And then go back and say, wait a second, my first point I picked in red was 10, comma, 2. And if I remember, this was my x of 1 and my y sub 1. So step 4, all that was just the hard work. Step 4 is putting all that back into the equation. Right in point slope form. So I will repeat one more time. Y minus y sub 1 equals m times the quantity of x minus x sub 1. We have all our information, and all we need to do is plug it in. Y sub 1 is 2, so I'm going to go y minus 2 equals my slope, 1 over 6, parentheses, x minus, and x of 1 is 10. And there's my equation of the line. I come back here, and the only thing you need to be careful with is you need to make sure you understand you're filling in this with a 2. You're not going to put the minus 2 because it already had the minus in the formula. So it's just going to be a 2. This one is a 1 over 6. Use the slash bar to make it a fraction. And then in here, it's already a minus, so I'm just going to write or type in 10 and click submit. Let's go ahead and look at another problem. Feel free to pause, move forward, or just go to your assignment if you feel confident. In this one, we'll go through our 4 steps again, but if you wrote it down prior, then you should have it in front of you. I'm not going to write all 4 steps anymore. I'm just going to go through it. So step 1, let us focus in on this coordinate point in red. They're counting by hundreds, so that's negative 300, comma, 300. So there's my first step. My second step, find another point. I'm going to follow my line, and I see it hits right here. This is at 400, comma, 200. So I'm going to go 400, comma, 200. That was our step 2. Step 3, I'm going to label these x1, y1, x2, y2, and I'm going to find its slope by plugging it into our formula for slopes when I have 2 points given. Now we go ahead, and I'm just going to substitute every value in for its letter. So I have 200 minus 300. That came from the y sub 2 minus the y sub 1. And now I have to do the same for the x's. 400 minus, because that's in my formula, and I have a negative 300. So I'm going to add this inside parentheses. Now, if you remember your math skills, anytime you have a negative times another negative side by side, we need to clean it up. So this is really 200 minus 300 over 400 plus 300. 200 minus 300 equals negative 100. And 400 plus 300 is 700. Oh my, it's like a tongue twister. This is not good because I need to reduce. So if I were to reduce, and you remember your elementary rules, if they end in zeros, you can cancel them out. Or you can say divide the top by 100 and divide the bottom by 100. And when you divide the top and bottom by 100, you will have left negative 1 over 7. So that was step 3 to find my slope. The final step, I have my first point I used. That was negative 300 comma 300. That was the point in red. And we're going to put this into our equation. So y minus y sub 1 equals m times x minus x of 1. Go ahead and substitute in all your values. Y minus 300, because we plugged in our y sub 1. If you need it labeled, here's y sub 1. And this is my x of 1. Equals, my slope is negative 1 over 7 times the quantity of x minus negative 300. Now, here's where I disagree and don't like IXL that much, but I understand what they're doing. This here is your answer. If you were to look back in your problem, you would put in 300 because they already have the negative there. And then over here, you would put in your slope. It's negative 1/7. And here's where I don't like IXL because they have a negative here that matches this negative. So I need to enter negative 300 in the other piece. This here is an acceptable answer, but in my opinion, when you want to prepare for future math, you want to clean this up. This is really y minus 300 equals negative 1 over 7. And then this is x, and a negative negative makes a plus 300. This is, to me, technically the best answer, but IXL accepts it this way, and this is the only way it accepts it. So just remember, do what your IXL is doing, for that is going to be the difference between right and wrong. Okay, so let's go ahead and let me jump to another level and see if there's anything that might be complicated or an issue that you might see. Otherwise, I'm going to just do one more problem and finish it off. So it looks like they're all similar. I'm going to just do one more to finish it off. Let's go for it. You guys are doing awesome. Here's my red dot, negative 90, comma 80. Negative 90, comma 80. There's my first point. Let's pick a second point, and it can be anywhere. You can use that one. I'm just going to mess around and use this one down here to show you that you're still going to get the same answer. So this one down here is negative 60, negative 40. So that's the beauty about lines. No matter what point you pick on that line, you're going to get the same answer as long as you do the work correctly. So now we picked our 2 points. You said it. Let's label it x1, y1, x2, y2. And yes, let's attack that slope with the formula. And if you haven't memorized this yet, that means you haven't written enough. The change in y over the change in x. Now let's go ahead and plug everything in. Negative 40 minus 80. That's my y2 minus y sub 1 over x of 2 minus my x of 1. Notice the formula always has a negative, so there's my negative. And then the y sub 2, or I'm sorry, the x of 1 is a negative, so I put it in parentheses. Let's clean this up yet again. So we got negative 40 minus 80. I got negative 60 plus 90, because a negative negative makes a plus. Now I'm going to go ahead and work it out. Negative 40 minus 80 is negative 120. This one says negative 60 plus 90, or it's commutative. You can reread it as 90 minus 60, which is 30. Remember what we said, we cannot leave it here. This is not simplified. So I'm going to go back to my rule of if it ends in a 0 on the top and bottom, I can cancel them out. And now we're just stuck with, well, what's negative 12 divided by 3? And that would be negative 4. If you said negative 4 over 1, that is correct as well. But a whole number, when we write it in a formula, we typically don't put it over 1. So there's my slope. Bring back the original point that we had in red. So there's my original point, and I'll label it again, x1, y sub 1. And let's finish it off. We're almost there. We got y minus y sub 1 equals my slope times x minus x of 1. And we're going to substitute in our values. Y minus 80 equals negative 4. And then x minus a negative 90. I don't like this answer, but it is the answer that they are looking for. Actually, because we don't have blanks here, I'm going to be able to write the answer I like now. I'm going to be able to clean this up and put y minus 80 equals negative 4, and then x plus 90, because a negative negative makes a positive. I know this answer will work for sure in here because a negative negative. Now, I'm curious what happens if I put in this answer. So let me be the test so that if you do it, you'll know if it's going to take it as right or wrong. And I'm going to do it, and I'm going to put negative negative 90. I seriously am going to emphasize again, I don't like putting negative negative side by side like they did earlier in this lesson. Personally, I would change it to a positive, and I know that is definitely going to be correct. But I'm just curious if IXL will take a negative negative. So I will be the guinea pig to test it out for you, and let's see what happens. And IXL actually accepts it. So in IXL, they will accept that negative negative side by side. But when we do working class, and I'm telling you, when we are back in school, I highly recommend you rewrite it as a positive, please, because I know that is something that a lot of teachers will ask for you. Well, that's it for this lesson. I'm going to stop it here. But if anyone has further questions, please feel free to come to tutoring or ask when we meet in class the next time. I hope this tutorial has helped you better understand and that you can pause and repeat and rewind if needed so that you can let this concept soak in, because everything we're doing is all the stuff we've already done. It's just putting it all together. Have a good day, and I wish you the best on this assignment.